So we do Netivot Shalom, Parashat tavo. Wow, we're heading fast forward to the end of the year. Unbelievable. Tavo el Eretz Elyon. We come to the higher land, the highlands, heights, to the heights. Vaya tavo el Eretz, right? So the pasuk said when you come to the land, but it says in the holy book Toldot Yaakov, he said to explain like. Right. So all the stories of the Torah, again, it's not historical stories, but it's infinite. So what does it mean when you come to the land? In the infinity of it. So he said, now we're going to explain the infinity of it, of the mitzvat bikurim, right? Because the parasha starts with the first fruit that somebody has, and then you have to bring it to the Bet HaMikdash. So the Torah starting said, when you come to the land, you have the fruit you have to bring. But again, infinitely, what does it mean? So how you can also fulfill that mitzvah when today we don't have Bet HaMikdash to bring the fruit? So now we're going to learn the Chasiduth of it, right? Like the kavanah, what's the intention for that? Ki tavo el haaretz, which mean when the tzaddik is coming to the higher world, which is olam haba, and it's called the higher, right? The olam haba, you can say like you have whatever, I don't know, you have Golan Heights, Washington Heights, then you have the land heights, which is spiritual land in olam haba. So this is what it means. Vehaya, it's a lashon of simcha, it's a happiness, because when a righteous person fulfill his task here, and he died, and and he's going to the olam haba, then he's good. You know where he's going to a good place. Because in this world, he suffered, he had sorrow, agony, etc., right? This is, they call olam hatala, it's the world of suffering, right? Most of the time, we're not having fun. And that's not the purpose why we're here, although we're trying to do that. So he said, and also it's explained Orachem HaKadosh, etc. He said, "Ve'le'or darko, she'aretz eno olam haba," right? So he said, so what they explained, he said that the land is the olam haba. Yesh lomar od, we can say furthermore, that the land, the Haaretz HaElyona, it's also Shabbos. And it says in the Zohar HaKadosh, "B'artzenu da yom Shabbat, diyu dugmat eretz hachaim, she'olam haba olam shabbat." So it said like it's the land which is like olam haba, the world of the souls. In the Midrash it says, when it says in Bereshit, "V'yanicheu began Eden," when Hashem put Adam HaRishon in Gan Eden, he gave him a mitzvat Shabbat. As it said, "V'yanach b'yom hashvi'i," right? Le'ovda. Sheshet yamim ta'avod, u'leshomra, right? Shamor et yom Shabbat lekadshon. The 6th day the Adam HaRishon needed to work, and the 7th day to sanctify. Which means, lo she'evir oto b'mkomo legan. Doesn't mean that he moved him into the Gan Eden, but in the same place that he were already there, the Gan Eden, he gave him the Shabbos. So it's like he's in the land, but when Hashem gave him the Shabbos, it became Gan Eden. Because the Shabbos is the Gan Eden, right? It's heaven on earth. This is what we're supposed to feel, especially when we eat cholent. It seems to be. Yesh lavin, we need to explain, right? When it says le'ovda sheshet yamim, right, tavo, that you need to work 6 days, but after all, he put him in Gan Eden, which means that he gave him the mitzvah of Shabbat. And how is it relate, these 6 days of work, to the mitzvah of Shabbat? And he said, right, there is a song, Kaich Sof, Noam Shabbos, right? Shabbat Noam and Neshamot, it's like the pleasure of the souls, and the 7-1 is the pleasure of the spirits, and the Eden and heaven for the other parts of the soul, to get pleasure in your love, in your fear, etc. Right? This song have deep meaning and really beautiful words. She said we need to explain that not only the Shabbos itself is the pleasure of the souls and the spirits, etc., but also the influence of Shabbos, which is the source of the Kedusha and the blessing, it's influencing the pleasure on the souls, the Noam. Like you said, Noam, it's something that is very pleasant, not only for Shabbos, but also for the rest of the days of the week. Leit'aden ba'avatcha, like to get idunim, delicacies in your pleasure, in your love, etc. that the Shabbos is actually make us very, very sensitive or very, I forgot the word in English. What is the late aden, to get pleasure, but it's not exactly the right translation. So anyway, so the Shabbat Kodesh is influenced for the rest of the days, but especially for the souls and in the level of Ava and Ira, love and fear. That they will not be very thick on a negative side during the week. So the light of the Shabbos is like enlightening in us in all the level, from the brain to the heart until the body, right? We keep repeating. This is the classic concept, that we have the brain, which is a different level, a higher level, and then we have the heart with the desires, and the body with the simple things, simple urge and needs. And now he said, he brings a story that once Rav HaKadosh, I think Menachem Chernobyl, Zechuto again, he said that he doesn't feel the Gedusha of Shabbos in his left foot. And they found out that his assistant, his Meshamesh, accidentally gave him the sock for the left foot that he was used to use during the 6 days. He had a designated socks also for Shabbos. And when he wore the one accidentally that was supposed to be during the days of the week, he couldn't feel the Gedusha, because the Gedusha is supposed to be in the entire body. That's a very high level. Very high level. And also hinted in Chazal, in Masechet Ta'anit, right? Shemesh b'Shabbat tzedakah lanim, like the sun of Shabbos, it's like a charity to the poor. You say, what does it mean? Poor, we always thinking about money and assets. Said no, poor is in our brain, in the wisdom. But the light of Shabbos is like a charity to the poor people that don't have that wisdom, because the Shabbat is like the sun that lights to the entire creation, and that's giving a charity to the people, poor people. Everybody understand, even the secular people, they have a feeling that there is Shabbat. There is something that's very difficult to explain, but it's just a feeling. And that's the spiritual light. Right, Midrash Rabbah. So he said here, now he keep repeating about the Gan Eden, that Hashem gave him the mitzvah of Shabbat, right? Ve'anicho beGan Eden, shenatan mitzvat Shabbat, that after he had the sin with the Etz Hadat, right, with the tree, on the 6th day, when he was created, right? The man was created on the 6th day, and that blemish was severe blemish in the entire creation. He couldn't find any cure to that blemish, only but he put him in the Gan Eden, and he gave him the mitzvah Shabbat, right? So we know that he took him, like he kicked him out of Gan Eden, Hashem. But when he gave him the Shabbat, it's like he made heaven on earth because of the Shabbat. And that was the cure for all the blemishes. And that's the explanation le'ovda, which means this is the tikkun for 6 days of work, right? And le'shamra, and to keep it, that was to keep the Yom HaShabbat. V'al derech hita b'midrash Rabbah, it says, shepaga Adam bekain, right? So man, Adam HaRishon, after Cain murdered Hevel, he saw him, he was surprised to see him alive, and said, what's going on with you? How come you're still here? So Cain told him, I made tshuva, and like I made a deal with my creator. I made a deal. That was the first, how you said, you know, when somebody had a trial, then you can make a deal with the prosecutor.
Plea bargain.
A what?
Plea bargain.
Plea bargain. Okay, so he said, I made a plea bargain with the prosecutor. So first man started to hit his face like this and said, oh, if I knew that you can do that, I didn't know, right? I didn't know. And then he wrote the Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat, Tov Lodot LaHashem, right? And it seems to me like it's a little bit difficult. What do you mean a plea bargain with Hashem? Really? You can make a deal with Hashem, like what, you can give him something instead of? How can it be? And here it says actually in the Hebrew, it's called compromise, right? I compromised with him. How is it possible? Eventually we see. So why he said the Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat? How is it related to make compromise, the plea bargain with Hashem to Shabbos? And explaining according to what the Rav Asaba Kadosh Milechovitz, Zechato again on the pasuk, he says, "Vayasem Hashem leKain." Right, so Hashem put a mark on Cain, right, a sign. that even though he was cursed that he would be roaming in the land, still that will happen only during the secular day, the 6 days. But he gave them a mark that was the mitzvah of Shabbos, which is called a ot, right? When we say in the Kiddush, oti beni uben bnei Israel, right? Why? Because Shabbat Kodesh, Cain, and hopefully we're going back to our level. And this is what Cain said, it's like a plea bargain. All the week, I'm roaming, I'm going from one place to another, I'm confused, I don't know where I am. But during Shabbos, I'm going back to my place, spiritually. And therefore, Adam HaRishon, he says, Vizmor Shir Yom Shabbat, because it's so great, the Kedusha of Shabbat, that even after Cain killed his brother, still he have a tikkun, still he can keep the Shabbos. וזה שאמר הכתוב, והיה כי תבוא על הארץ, right? So now we're going back to the verse from the Tzvat Bikurim, that when we're going to the land that Hashem is giving to us, which means to the divine land, to the higher land, which is Shabbos, that we always have to go up and up and up and up, right? It's like bicycle. When you feel that it's easy for you, you're actually going down, which is not a good thing. But these are for the 6 days, right? And therefore it says, "V'lakachta mereshit kol pri adama," and the bikurim we took for the first fruit of the land. That's the common denominator here. So reshit pri adama, the beginning of the fruit of the land, it's a hint for all the gashmiut, all the chomarim amegushamim, that during Shabbos we can elevate them and make them also sacrifice to Hashem, right? Also. And I'm going to skip here because here is mentioning again that all the physical pleasure that we're having and we are not bringing to Hashem, and we're not doing it to Shem Shamayim, we're not doing it for a mitzvah, this is actually separate us from Hashem. And therefore it says b'Shabbat li'tanek b'ta'anugim, right? Basically it's the spiritual one, but even when we eat, we need to remember there is Hashem and not to forget. And that will enlighten us and will bring us to a higher level, no matter where we are. And that's why I said, even if somebody is doing idol worshipping like Dor Enosh, that was the worst generation because they started actually idol worshipping, right? So they're the first one. So that was so severe. So even if somebody was like them, but is keeping Shabbos, then he will be forgiven. So the light of the Shabbos is lighting even to somebody that is poor in the Da'at. And therefore Hashem told Moshe, Matana tova yesh li b'nei Nazar, I have a hidden treasure. And it's called Shabbat. He said, why Shabbat is a gift? It's a present, it's a gift. But only Shabbat called a gift and not the other mitzvot. Hashem have many other mitzvot to give us. But because the Shabbat Kodesh is lighting to us wherever we are. And it's good for each and everyone. It's in the same context of Ir Miklat, a refuge city. That the Shabbat is a refuge city for us. And the Shabbat is k'ma'amar, as it says, Bal Divrei Shmuel Zechoto Galenu. Al derech mashal. So now we're doing analogy. Somebody that walks in a dark path, and he's soaked wet from the rain until he's bone, and he's shaking from shivering from cold, and he's hungry and he's thirsty, and he's so suffering in the path, right? When the walk that he walked, and suddenly go to an inn, to a chsania, right, to a motel, that full of light, and it's warm, and he have the food and have everything over there. He go up to his room, taking off his clothes, put him on the radiator, he's getting new clothes, right? He's now going, he's eating, he's drinking, Amechaye, and he's rejuvenating, right? Now his strength is coming back to us. So said, this is how we should feel after Shabbos, that we have these 6 days of the week. Here we're very lucky we have Sunday, right? So after the 6 days of the week, we go into Shabbat. This is how we should feel, like that, the analogy that we are like in the path, walking, cold, dark, and Shabbat is reviving us, right? So this is how we should feel. And also, he burned another analogy, somebody that was in the sea, and the captain threw him a rope, and he said, hold on to the rope. So as long as you're holding the rope, you have life. You let the rope go, that's it. You're disconnecting. So that's the strength, that's the koach of the Shabbat. It's the rope, it's the saving rope that Hashem gave us, that even if we are in a stormy weather in the middle of the sea, we still have hope, and we still have a way to survive. And the Shabbat Kodesh is the saving rope from all situations that we have. That's why it says, right? For example, v'chagor natna laknali. The Shabbat is like chagorat hatzela. Chagor is like a belt, like a floating belt. That even that somebody that do like Maaseh Eretz Canaan, they did what that nation of Canaan were doing, which they were like full of immorality thing. Still, the Shabbat is the time of the Korban Bikurim to bring the sacrifice to Hashem, to elevate that fruit. Spiritually, it's us. And also it will explain why the parasha, v'aya ki tavo el haaretz, right? So we end the last parsha with the same zachor et asher asar lecha Amalek, right? That we're reading usually before Purim, right? To commemorate what Amalek did to us. So what's the similar? Why these two parashiyot are close to each other? Mechiyat Amalek, right? And the Bikurim. So he says, by wiping out the Amalek, we can actually go into the Eretz Elyona, because the Shabbat is like the Gan Eden Atachton Alei Adamot, because the Shabbat is like heaven on earth. But we can do that only when we are wiping the Amalek. And he says the Shabbat, right? Ala katuv begimatria mechiyat Amalek. It's like the gematria, the numerical value of the Shabbat is the same numerical value of mechiyat Amalek, wiping the Amalek. And we have Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho, right, to commemorate the Shabbat. And we have Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek, and commemorate what Amalek did to us. One against the other one. Shezen ofel zekam. When Amalek are down, we are up. When Chas v'Chalila we down, it means that Amalek is up. And the Amalek is the root. Rosh velana. It's the root of the bad thing, of the evil thing in the creation. As it says, Milchama laHashem ba'Amalek midodo. Hashem is fighting Amalek each and every generation. So that's in general, but also for individual. Each person have that, unfortunately, the bad part of Amalek. And by making an effort, and we are wiping the memory of Amalek, and we're uprooting the Shoresh HaPoreh Rosh Velana, then we can actually gain the Shabbos. And by having Shabbos, we can really wipe the Amalek. Right? We can really wipe the Amalek. And it says, right? When Hashem is going to put us in the land, then we can actually wipe the memory of Amalek, and we can uproot him. As it says in Reshit Chochmah, in the book Al Pasuk, Ve'varech Elokim et Yom HaShvim ve'kedoshto, right? Hashem blessed, sanctified the 7th day, and blessed him, because the Shabbat is the root of all the Gedusha, and it's the source that coming to us in all the matter of Gedusha. And only by the Shabbat we can actually fulfill that purpose of nation of Kohanim and Goy Kadosh. And in it, each and every Jew have a part of Amalek, which is a part of a bad and evil thing that we need to wipe it. But against that, we have the source of the Kedusha, which is the Shabbat, and our souls are all connected to Hashem, right? We learn that we have 5 parts of the soul. 2 parts of them are spiritual one, and one is connected again to the Klal Yisrael. And by having that connection, when we go into the shul, we're going together with the minyan, we have that strength, and with that strength that is connected through the soul to Hashem and to the Klal Yisrael, we have really the strength to wipe the Amalek. Unbelievable. And it's also hinted in the Zohar HaKadosh. Rabbi Yehuda Kara Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Yehuda was calling Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Shabbat. He named him Shabbat. His nickname was Shabbos. Ma Shabbat LaHashem Kodesh. Right? So the Shabbat is Kodesh to Hashem. Of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Shabbat LaHashem Kodesh is also that. So the explanation for this thing is that Shema Shabbat LaHashem Kodesh, right? The Shabbat is sanctified to Hashem because it's the source of Kedusha. Also, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is sanctified, is like a source for Kedusha for us, to the Jew, because he actually influenced and he revealed lots of spiritual knowledge to us that we are still learning from it. And that's why there is an inyan to learn the Zohar, even to read, even if said here. Even if you don't understand what the Zohar is saying, it's good to read it. The soul will understand. And he said, Nefesh Tzaddik, right? The Tzaddik, the righteous person, is wrapped in his words, which means the Zohar HaKadosh is bringing a spirit of Kedusha on someone that is reading it. From Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's still influencing. and the Makom, right, and that place, and Hashem is causing the light of the Kedusha of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that he will influence us for the Shabbos as well. And that's like the same rope, the saving rope that we have, and we're holding to that. So whether if we're reading Zohar or we're learning Torah and Gemara, etc., it's all part of the rope that is holding us to keep the Shabbos and wipe the Amalek and uproot the evil and everything, especially now before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, etc. And that's why when it says in the Pasuk, I'm just repeating how we started with the verse of the Bikurim, when it says, Ki tavo el haaretz, when you come to the land. And we learned on the Derech HaChasidut that the land is actually the upper land, the Olam HaElyon. And we also learned that heaven is heaven on earth. Because Hashem, when he kicked out Adam HaRishon from the Gan Eden, he gave the mitzvah Shabbat. So the Shabbat, metaphorically, actually, or literally, you can say, is the Gan Eden. And we have the Sur Merav, Aseh Tov, right? We have to detach ourselves from the bad. This is wiping the Amalek, and do good. This is keeping Shabbos, and hold to the rope, and learn Torah, etc. And then we'll have pleasure to us all. Thank you very much for listening. I hope I didn't put you to sleep.